Welcome to Studying English at Aston University, the How To series. So in this particular recording, I will be talking about how to avoid plagiarism. The order I want to talk about this is, first of all, I will explain what plagiarism means, what it constitutes. I will then give examples of plagiarism and bad academic practice. I will then go on to look at how to avoid plagiarism, giving examples then of good academic practice. And finally, I will talk about coursework submission procedure at Aston University before finishing off with a summary of what constitutes good academic practice. So what is plagiarism? The university's examination regulations for candidates and the regulations on student discipline state that plagiarism is where a student uses, without appropriate acknowledgement, the work of other people and presents it as their own, which may give an unfair advantage over others. So in a way, to say this in other words, it means we are taking another person's work, art, thoughts, ideas, or words, and presenting them as our own. So presenting them as our own and without any acknowledgement. So there is a deliberate attempt to conceal the offence, or there could be disregard, some disregard for the expected standard of referencing advice. And plagiarism involves taking and using without appropriate acknowledgement from sources that are published or unpublished. So it doesn't matter whether they have been published before or whether they have never been published. And it is also about whether they are in written form or electronic form. So it can be in any format, and taking it and using it without appropriate acknowledgement will constitute plagiarism. So I'd like to exemplify some of this with some essay openings. Let's imagine that a group of students are writing an essay on the topic of the importance of authenticity in English language teaching. And let's assume that they've all read the same article by Guariento and Marley, and that they all decide to draw on the following extract. The extract is in blue here. And each essay opening will make use of this particular extract in various ways. And then I will talk about each essay opening as I go along. So in the first one, we have the text in blue, same as in the source that we have looked at. So the blue text shows the verbatim quotation. There are no quotation marks, no indentation, no acknowledgement of the source. So this is likely to be strike tutors as deliberate plagiarism. So here we have the student writing their own wording. In recent years, the importance of authenticity in English language teaching has been the subject of considerable debate. In discussing the issue, we must consider that, so the blue text here is again a verbatim quotation, and so this is a similar situation to the previous example we have seen. However, this time the source is cited. The fact that the source is cited is not enough. Okay, so if you quote, you must use quotation marks to signal exactly which words belong to your source. So lack of quotation marks again will be recognized as bad academic practice by tutors. A third example, this time we have the text from the source, here again in blue, but if you quote, you must use quotation marks. Giving the page number is not sufficient. So the date is there, yes. The author's names are there, yes. The page number is there, yes. But this is not enough because the quote is a verbatim quote. Most of it has been taken from the original source, so the quotation marks have to be used. So on the left-hand side, we see the original quote from the source, and I have underlined some of the words here to show how these words have been substituted with synonyms in the reproduction by the students. So the essay opening on the right-hand side, in discussing the importance of authenticity, we must bear in mind that. So here we have, I have used 3 different colors to indicate the kind of problems that are arising here. First of all, some of the original phrasing has been repeated verbatim, and that is in blue text. Okay, so the need to develop skills for the real world, and this world in the classroom, these are taken directly from the original source. Some of the words have been substituted with synonyms, and I have used red for this. So, for example, instead of consider that, the student has said, we must bear in mind that. So with the onset of, since the start of, a greater awareness of, an increased consciousness of. The communicative revolution instead of the communicative movement. Okay, and has led most teachers to try to reproduce here, has meant that teachers. And you will notice that there is a new word added here. Okay, so the new words have been inserted, so the importance of and most have been added into the text written by the student, and there is no acknowledgement. The content is too close to the original, but without the acknowledgement, it looks like it's a deliberate attempt to mislead. So now you will see a smiley there. We have another essay opening. This time we have the acknowledgement of what the original source is. The essay opening uses the student's own wording, and then there is a paraphrase. So classroom practices are becoming increasingly attuned to the demands that the real world makes of the learner. So the paraphrase used here, it condenses the relevant points from the source and immediately acknowledges it in full detail. So this is acceptable paraphrasing. Another acceptable one is here. So I have used again different colors to indicate what's happening. So the source material has been partly paraphrased and partly quoted, and in a faithful reproduction of the original point. And the author's names have been given at the beginning, and the date and page number have been added at the end. So there's a clear mark as to where the paraphrase starts and where the quotation ends. So the whole sentence refers to the author's work. A final example is quite different, where we have an indented quotation. So the actual quotation has been used at the start, and then the student goes on to say, this observation encapsulates the 3 important aspects underlying the question of authenticity in English language teaching that I wish to investigate in this essay. Firstly, and then they explain what the structure will be. So the indented quotation has been used as a starting point for the essay and for the argument, and it's a strong way of starting an essay. Okay, so I'll now move on to the submission of coursework at Aston University. All students have to submit their coursework via a Turnitin link within Blackboard. Blackboard is our virtual learning environment, the virtual learning platform that we use. And the Turnitin software it's a tool which creates an originality report for each submission, and it's a way of helping detect problems in a particular submission, problems of bad academic practice in a particular submission, in all the coursework submission. So how does it work? A very short text taken from an essay, and on the left-hand side you have the highlighted text, highlights in red, and you'll see it says 60. So that means there is 60% match of sources that this student has copied from. 12% of it is from a source that was submitted to Aston University. And at the bottom it says candidate number. So there are two possibilities here where the candidate number could be the same candidate number as the student submitting, in which case it will be self-plagiarism because they are actually using their own wording from, for example, another assignment that they have submitted and for which they got a mark for, and it is a problem to self-plagiarize as well. But here there's a more serious situation in that the candidate number actually is a different student's candidate number. In this particular case, the student had plagiarized from another student's essay from a previously submitted essay on another in another cohort. If I move on, please make sure that the coursework you are submitting is entirely your own. And wherever you use someone else's material in your own coursework, in whatever form this may be, make sure you provide full acknowledgement. If you are using a direct quotation, please make sure that it is clear where the quotation starts and finishes. And if you have paraphrased from a source, you must still acknowledge the original source and the paraphrasing must still be clearly signaled. And remember that there is unacceptable paraphrasing and acceptable paraphrasing. We have seen examples, and acceptable paraphrasing means reformulating everything using your own words. Any keywords you may choose to use from the original text will have to be put in quotation marks. And finally, do not self-plagiarize. And I'd like to mention that the essay openings used as examples of good and bad academic practice in this particular video recording were prepared by my colleague, Dr. Carol Marley. And I believe that these examples provide useful insight into acceptable and unacceptable paraphrasing and show ways of avoiding inadvertent plagiarism. So I hope the content has been useful. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me at my email address n.hooten@aston.ac.uk. Thank you.